There's something strange about the way you say yes. On the surface, it looks kind, helpful, easygoing. You're the reliable one, the understanding one, the person everyone knows they can call, text, lean on. Have you ever noticed how quickly the word slips out of your mouth, even when your whole body is saying no? Your chest tightens, your stomach drops, your mind starts negotiating with itself before your lips even move. But somehow, there it is again. Yeah, sure, no problem. You apologize when other people bump into you. You offer to help before anyone has even asked. You stay up late, overworked and overwhelmed just because you couldn't bring yourself to refuse a small favor. People might call you too nice. But you know it's not that simple, is it? Because under that smile, there's tension. Under that calm voice, there's resentment. And under all those yesies, there's a quiet, suffocating no. So why is it so hard for you to say it? What's really going on in the psychology of someone who can't say no? That's what we're going to explore together. The surface story: I'm just being nice on the outside. It looks like this. Your coworker asks you to cover a shift. You had plans to finally rest, but the words are already forming. It's okay, I can do it. A friend calls you at 1 a.m., crying over the same situation for the fifth time. You're exhausted, but you stay on the phone anyway. You say, no, it's fine, I'm here for you, always. Your family expects you to show up, to help, to fix, even when you're clearly running on empty, and you tell yourself the same story: I'm just being a good person. I don't want to be selfish. This is what it means to care. But here's the thing: if it were really just kindness, you wouldn't feel so anxious. You wouldn't feel that tiny flicker of anger when someone texts, "Can you do me a favor?" You wouldn't constantly replay conversations later, wondering why you didn't speak up. Kindness doesn't leave you drained and invisible. Fear does, and this is where it gets complex. Underneath the yes, fear, not generosity. Here's the truth: for many people who can't say no, the driving force isn't generosity, it's fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of being seen as difficult, fear of being abandoned, fear of guilt. You're not just saying yes to a request, you're saying yes to safety. In psychology, this connects deeply to what's called attachment theory. If you grew up in an environment where love felt conditional, you may have learned early that being good, helpful, or low maintenance was the safest way to keep people close. Maybe one of your parents was unpredictable. Warm one moment, distant or critical the next. You learned to scan their mood like weather, to anticipate needs before they were spoken, to avoid conflict at all costs. You didn't think, I can't say no or they'll pull away. You just felt it in your nervous system. Now, as an adult, that pattern lives on. You say yes not because the situation calls for it, but because your body remembers. People are easier to keep when I don't cause problems. It's conflict avoidance, but it's also connection protection. People-pleasing, as survival psychologists sometimes call this, fawning. It's a stress response, just like fight, flight, or freeze. Instead of fighting back, you soften. Instead of running away, you move closer. Instead of freezing, you become flexible, accommodating, agreeable. It looks like laughing at a joke that actually hurt you. Saying no, really, it's fine, when it absolutely isn't. Volunteering before anyone asks, just to avoid the discomfort of them needing something. The psychology behind this runs deeper than simple politeness. Your nervous system has learned that being agreeable keeps you safe. Not emotionally safe in the long term, but moment-to-moment safe. Less tension, less conflict, less risk of someone thinking badly of you. And maybe in your past that was actually true. Maybe staying quiet did prevent an argument. Maybe being obedient did protect you from someone's anger. Maybe putting your own needs last really was the cost of peace. So now, even in situations where you could say no, you can't. Because your mind understands you're an adult now, but your body still reacts like a child trying not to lose love. The paradox? You disappear to be seen. There's a paradox here that hurts to look at. You say yes to be liked. But the more you say yes, the less you feel truly seen. You agree to everything, hoping people will appreciate you. You show up again and again to prove your worth. You overextend yourself, thinking, maybe this time they'll notice how much I do. But when people only see you as the reliable one, they're not actually seeing you. They're seeing your usefulness, so you disappear to be accepted. You silence your needs to stay close. You shrink yourself in the name of belonging. And this is where it gets interesting. Over time, you start losing the ability to answer one simple question: what do you actually want? Not what's easiest for others, not what keeps the peace, not what makes you look good, just you. Sometimes when someone finally asks you, where do you want to go? Or what do you need? Your mind goes blank. It's not that you don't have preferences. It's that you've trained yourself not to look at them. Because looking at them might mean facing a painful truth. Your needs might conflict with someone else's. And if you choose yours, will they still stay the role of mirror neurons? You feel too much. Here's what's fascinating. For many people who struggle to say no, empathy is turned up high. You don't just understand how others feel. You feel how others feel. Thanks to something called mirror neurons, your brain reflects back the emotional states you see in others. Someone looks disappointed and you feel a sting in your own chest. Someone is stressed and your shoulders tense up in response. So when someone asks for help, you're not just hearing a request. You're experiencing their worry, their fear, their need. Saying no doesn't just feel like a boundary. It feels like inflicting pain. And because your emotional wiring is so sensitive, their disappointment feels unbearable. Your brain translates it as danger. So you sacrifice yourself not because you don't matter, but because in that moment you literally feel like their pain is your fault. But the truth is, feeling someone's emotions doesn't make you responsible for them. Empathy is a gift. Self-erasure is not. The hidden beliefs driving your yes under your automatic yes, there are silent beliefs. Some might sound like this: if I say no, they'll think I'm selfish. If I say no, they won't ask me again. If I say no, I'll disappoint them. If I say no, I'll lose them. These beliefs often trace back to early experiences where love felt tied to performance. Maybe you were praised when you were helpful. Maybe you were ignored when you had needs. Maybe you were called difficult or dramatic when you expressed pain. So you made a quiet decision. It's safer if I don't need much. It's better if I make things easy for everyone. I'll be lovable if I'm useful. And here's what's really happening. You're not afraid of the word no. You're afraid of what you imagine it means about you. Selfish, unkind, ungrateful, hard to deal with, too much. But the truth is, saying no doesn't make you selfish. It makes you real. The cost of always saying yes on the outside, everything looks fine. You're functioning, you're helping, you're managing. But inside, there's a slow burning cost. Emotionally, you start feeling resentful but guilty for being resentful, invisible but afraid to take up space, overwhelmed but calling it being tired. Psychologically, this can turn into chronic anxiety. Your mind is always on alert. Who might need something next? What if I let someone down? You might even start to experience something like emotional numbness. When you're constantly pushing your own feelings aside, eventually they stop knocking as loudly. Physically, your body keeps the score. Headaches, stomach aches, fatigue, sleep that doesn't feel restful because even in rest you're replaying conversations, worrying about whether you upset someone without knowing. And relationships, they become unbalanced. You attract people who take and don't notice, or people who love how much you give but never think to ask if you're actually okay. Here's the paradox again. You overextend to keep people close, but over time your quiet resentment builds distance anyway. You respond with "it's fine," but your tone becomes a little sharper. You show up, but you're emotionally checked out. You keep saying yes, but inside you're silently screaming no. When nice becomes self-betrayal, there's a moment in many people-pleasers' lives that feels like a crack in the shell. Maybe you cancel something important to you because someone else needed you at the last minute. Maybe you look at your calendar and realize your entire week belongs to everyone but you. Maybe you hear yourself say, "Don't worry about it," and a voice inside whispers, "But I do worry about it." That's not you being dramatic. That's you noticing your own self-betrayal. Self-betrayal happens when you abandon your own needs in order to maintain harmony outside of you. It sounds like, "I'm fine," when you're not. "It's okay," when it isn't. "Whatever you want," when what you want never sees the light. And this is where it gets complex. Part of you is proud of being that dependable person. You like being supportive. You like being there for people. That part is beautiful. But another part of you is tired, quietly angry, starting to wonder why no one seems to show up for you in the same way. The conflict between these two parts can feel like grief. Grief for all the times you needed someone and stayed silent. Grief for the version of you that never got chosen, even by yourself. The psychology of boundaries. Saying no as self-recognition. Boundaries sound harsh to some people. You might imagine walls, confrontation, or pushing others away. But here's the truth: boundaries aren't rejection. They're recognition. They say, "I exist too. My time matters. My energy matters. My feelings count as much as yours." In psychology, boundaries are a sign of individuation, the process of becoming your own person, separate from the expectations and moods of others. Without boundaries, you become fused with everyone around you. Their mood becomes your mood. Their needs outrank your needs. Their urgency becomes your emergency. With boundaries, something subtle shifts. You can care deeply without collapsing into someone else's life. Saying no can sound like, "I'd love to help, but I can't today. I don't have the capacity for that right now. That doesn't work for me. I need some time to rest this weekend." None of these sentences are attacks. They're simply statements of reality. And maybe that's the real turning point, realizing that your reality is valid, even when it's inconvenient for someone else. Why it feels so unbearable to disappoint people. If saying no is so healthy, why does it feel so terrifying? Because disappointment used to equal danger. For a child who grows up in a home where love is fragile, inconsistent, or easily withdrawn, Disappointing someone can feel like standing at the edge of a cliff. A sigh from a parent, a cold shoulder, a lecture about everything I do for you. Those moments teach you a story. When I don't meet expectations, love becomes unsafe. So now, as an adult, even a small hint of disappointment from others can light up your nervous system like a fire alarm. You might notice a racing heart when you think about saying number, over-explaining your reasons to feel justified, agreeing first, then trying to wiggle your way out later, saying yes and then feeling physically heavy afterward. But here's what's really happening. You're not reacting to this moment alone. You're reacting to every moment before it when you learned that your needs were a problem. The work now isn't to shame yourself for this. It's to understand it. You're not weak for struggling with no. You're adaptive. You did what you had to do to stay safe. Self-worth. Are you valuable beyond what you give? A difficult question sits at the center of all of this. Who am I if I stop being the one who always says yes? If your identity is wrapped up in being the helper, the fixer, the peacemaker, then setting boundaries can feel like a kind of death. Because now you're faced with something frightening. If I'm not useful, will people still want me? This is where self-worth comes in. If your worth is based on what you do for others, you will always feel replaceable. There's always someone who can give more, do more, say yes faster. But if your worth is based on who you are, your presence, your perspective, your humanity, then your value doesn't shrink when you say, I can't today. You're still you. Even when you disappoint someone, even when you choose rest, even when you say, no, not this time. Self-worth isn't arrogance, it's quiet. It sounds like my needs matter too. It sounds like I'm allowed to be human. Gentle reframes. From selfishness to balance, you might be thinking, but if I start saying no, won't I become selfish? Here's a gentle reframe. Selfishness is only my needs matter. People-pleasing is only your needs matter. Healthy is both our needs matter. You're not swinging from kindness to cruelty. You're moving from imbalance to balance. Another reframe, instead of I'm letting them down, what if you tried? I'm being honest about my limits, instead of I'm rejecting them. What if it's, I'm respecting myself and trusting them to handle their feelings? Instead of if I say no, they'll leave. What if it's, if they can only stay when I abandon myself, then their presence is costing me too much? Boundaries don't push away the right people. They filter out the ones who only came for the parts of you that were convenient. Tiny acts of resistance, learning to say no in small ways you don't have to transform overnight. In fact, you can't. Your yes has been a survival strategy for years. Treat it with respect even as you learn something new. Start small, pause before answering. Even a 3-second silence can interrupt the automatic yes. Practice saying, let me think about it, instead of answering immediately. Say no in low-stakes situations, like a group plan you don't actually want to join. Notice when resentment shows up. That's often a sign you agreed past your limit. You can even rehearse phrases ahead of time. I'd love to help, but I'm not available. That sounds important, I just don't have the space for it right now. I need to say no this time. Will it feel awkward? Almost definitely. Will your heart race? Probably. But that discomfort isn't proof that you're doing something wrong. It's proof that you're doing something new. Your nervous system is used to the familiar pain of self-abandonment. It will protest the unfamiliar relief of self-respect. Stay with it. Seeing the child behind the yes, here's something quietly powerful. The part of you that can't say no is often a younger version of you. A child who learned that love had rules. That being easy made you safe. That your tears were inconvenient. That your anger scared people. That your needs were negotiable. When you say yes, even when it hurts you, that child is the one answering. So instead of asking, what's wrong with me? Try asking, what did I have to survive? And maybe even, what would I say to that younger me now? You probably wouldn't tell them. You should try harder to keep everyone else happy. You might say something like, you're allowed to be tired. You don't have to earn love. You're not going to lose everyone just because you say no. The work of healing isn't about becoming tougher. It's about becoming kinder, not just to others, but to yourself. The long-term consequences of never saying no if nothing changes, the pattern tends to end in one of 3 ways. Burnout, you crash. Emotionally, mentally, physically. Your body says the no you never could. You stop being able to show up even when you want to. Bitterness, you stay, you help, you say yes, but the resentment takes root. Relationships feel heavy, one-sided, unfair. You start thinking, no one ever does this for me. Or disappearance. You slowly withdraw from people altogether, convinced that the only way to not be used is to not be close to anyone at all. But none of these outcomes are inevitable. You don't have to wait until you're exhausted, hardened, or isolated to start practicing no. You can begin now with the smallest act of honesty. You are not broken for struggling with no. If you see yourself in this, there's something important you need to hear. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not too nice in a stupid way. You adapted to your environment. You learned the rules of survival. You figured out how to keep love as available as possible, even if it meant disappearing a little. That was intelligent. That was resourceful. That was protective. But what kept you safe then might be hurting you now. And maybe that's the real shift, not rejecting the part of you that says yes but updating it. Thank you for protecting me when I needed you, but I'm not that powerless anymore. I don't have to agree to everything to be loved. Reclaiming your no as a form of love, here's what's really interesting. Saying no isn't just an act of self-protection. It can actually make your relationships better. When you start saying no, your yes becomes more honest. Your presence becomes more genuine. The people who stay learn to love you for who you are, not just for what you do. You move from guilt-driven giving to choice-driven giving. You help when you can, not when you're collapsing. You listen because you want to, not because you're afraid not to. You show up fully, not resentfully. That's not selfishness. That's sustainable love. And for you personally, saying no is how you start hearing your own voice again. It's how you rediscover what you like, what you need, what makes you feel alive. Silence is not emptiness, it's space. And in that space, your true preferences, desires, and limits can finally breathe. Closing the circle, from automatic yes to conscious choice, let's come back to where we started. There's something strange about the way you say yes, how it arrives faster than your awareness, how it protects you while quietly erasing you. The psychology of someone who can't say no is not about weakness or being naive or needing to toughen up. It's about a nervous system trained to keep love close. It's about a heart that feels other people's pain intensely. It's about a history where your needs were negotiable and your role was to be easy to love. If this is you, you deserve so much compassion, not just from others, from yourself. You are allowed to disappoint people and still be good. You are allowed to rest and still be worthy. You are allowed to say no and still be loved. Your no does not make you cold. Your no does not make you cruel. Your no makes room for a truer yes. So next time your mouth rushes to say, sure, no problem, notice the tightening in your chest. Notice the tiny voice that whispers, I don't want to. Notice the child in you who is still afraid of being too much or not enough. And maybe, just maybe, you pause, you breathe, and you experiment with something different. Because in the end, this isn't really about learning to push people away. It's about finally choosing not to push yourself away. You are not here only to be useful. You are not here only to be agreeable. You are here as a whole person with limits and needs and edges. And every time you honor them, you are quietly telling yourself a new story. I am allowed to exist even when I say no.